The moment I walked into the ballroom, I knew I was the target. The music dipped, conversation stalled, and every eye shifted toward the stage. My sister was already there, standing beneath crystal lights, microphone in hand, smiling like someone who believed the ending was already written. She thought tonight was the night she'd expose me, destroy me, finally prove I was a fraud. What she didn't know? The investigation she started was already closing in on her. My name is Caleb Morgan, and in my family, being present never meant being seen. I grew up at the same table, in the same rooms, listening to the same conversations, yet somehow always invisible. Not hated, not rejected, just overlooked. I was the child who didn't cause problems, the one who didn't demand attention, the one who learned that silence was safer than asking. My parents valued tradition, reputation, and appearances above everything else. What things looked like mattered more than how they felt. My sister understood that instinctively. She knew when to speak, when to perform, and how to become the center of any room. Praise followed her like gravity. I watched from the edges. I learned early that if I wanted anything of my own, security, respect, freedom, I couldn't wait for it to be given. I'd have to build it quietly. My father believed success came in familiar shapes, titles he recognized, paths he approved. My mother managed emotions like negotiations, never loud, never direct, always shaping guilt into something that sounded like concern. And my sister? She was the center, polished, confident, celebrated. While she collected praise at charity galas, I sat in spare rooms with a laptop balanced on my knees, teaching myself systems no one asked for, building things no one noticed. They called her accomplished. They called me talented, the way people talk about hobbies. So I stopped explaining. I pushed my chair back. The sound was small, wood against tile, a scrape so ordinary it should have meant nothing, but the room reacted like something had cracked. Conversation stalled. Forks paused midair. Eyes turned toward me, surprised that I'd moved it all. "Watch me," I said. Not loud, not angry, just steady. No explanations, no speeches, no final attempt to be understood. I stood, walked past the table, and closed the door behind me. No one followed. And in that silence, something shifted. That night became the line between who I had been willing to be and who I refused to stay. Between existing quietly and finally choosing to leave the room that never made space for me.
The message came years later, on a quiet Tuesday morning. No drama, no build-up. Just another notification slipping in between system alerts, invoices, and contracts. The ordinary noise of a life I'd built far from them. It was from my cousin, Elena, the only one who ever hesitated before choosing a side. The only one who asked questions instead of repeating conclusions. 8 words. She hired investigators. She's planning something public. I read it once, then again. My thumb hovered over the screen, frozen. This wasn't rumor, not family speculation, not idle curiosity dressed up as concern. Investigators meant money, planning, intent. It meant she wasn't trying to understand me. She was trying to expose me. And whatever she thought she was about to uncover, she believed it would finally pull me back into a story I'd already walked away from. By noon, Marcus Reed, my business partner, was standing in my office. Not sitting, not relaxing. Standing the way people do when the conversation won't be comfortable. "She didn't hire amateurs," he said. "Private, expensive, thorough." He placed a folder on the table instead of handing it to me. The weight of it mattered. Inside were pages I recognized instantly. My company filings, client contracts, tax summaries, audit trails. Clean, legal, unremarkable. The kind of boring that comes from doing things the right way for a long time. Then I noticed the margin notes. Red ink, careful handwriting, cross-referenced accounts, flagged donations, transfers that didn't lead to me at all, but looped back to my sister's nonprofit. Patterns forming where none should exist. Marcus lowered his voice. She thinks she's building a case against you. I closed the folder slowly. The sound felt final. She doesn't realize, I said. She's standing on the truth. And the truth was already shifting, just not in the direction she expected. I didn't call my parents. I didn't confront my sister. I didn't defend myself to anyone who hadn't asked. I stayed quiet. Because silence isn't surrender. It's preparation. That night, long after the office lights went dark, I opened the folder again. Slowly. Page by page. Not skimming. Not reacting. Studying. I traced the paths she thought would lead to me, and watched them curve back on themselves. The investigation she paid for hadn't stopped at my door. It kept going. Into accounts she controlled. Into charities she signed for. Into transactions that didn't make sense once someone bothered to line them up. She hadn't ordered a spotlight. She'd hired a mirror. Every question she asked pulled another thread loose. Every attempt to expose me widened the frame. By the time I closed the folder, one thing was clear. She hadn't just miscalculated. She'd opened doors she didn't know how to close. And the quiet I kept, that was the sound of the strategy locking into place.
My apartment overlooked the city. Lights stretched across the glass like frozen sparks, distant, steady, indifferent. I didn't pace, didn't rehearse speeches, didn't imagine arguments I'd never need to have. There was nothing to defend. Instead, I opened a blank document and made a list. Dates, amounts, sources. Each entry clean, each line verifiable. No commentary, no emotion. Facts don't need emphasis. I wasn't preparing revenge. I was preparing clarity. The kind that doesn't raise its voice, because it doesn't have to. When the list was finished, I closed my laptop, set my phone face down, and let the room go quiet. Just before sleeping, I sent Marcus one message. I'm showing up. The reply came back immediately. Good. Some truths only work in person. I turned off the lights knowing one thing for certain. Tomorrow wouldn't be loud, but it would be final. The night of my grandmother's birthday, the ballroom shimmered like it had been polished for inspection. Crystal chandeliers spilled light across marble floors. Tables were set with precision, glass aligned, napkins folded just so. Waitstaff moved silently, rehearsed, invisible. Faces I hadn't seen in years turned as I entered. Old friends, distant relatives, people who remembered me vaguely as someone quieter, less important. The kind of room built for appearances, for speeches, for control. I walked in without hesitation, not rushing, not searching for approval, just present. Conversation softened, then dipped altogether. A few heads leaned together. Eyes tracked me as I crossed the floor. At the head of the room, my sister stood with a microphone already in hand. She looked effortless. Tailored suit, perfect posture. Dressed not for a party, but for a moment. For victory. When she noticed me, her smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it reset. Polished. Practiced. She tapped the microphone once. The room stilled. Tonight, she said smoothly, we celebrate family. A pause, measured, intentional. But before that, her gaze locked onto mine. There's something that needs to be addressed. The silence sharpened, and every instinct in the room turned toward me. She spoke about honesty, about integrity, about misleading success, painting a picture she thought would humiliate me. The room leaned in, breaths held, waiting for the revelation she had rehearsed for months. Every eye was on me, expecting shame, apology, or at least a flicker of panic. Then, the doors opened. 3 officials stepped inside, their presence immediate and commanding. Badges gleamed under the chandelier light. Their voices were calm, measured, carrying authority without drama. Is Miss Morgan present? The lead agent asked. My sister's confident smile remained. "Yes, I'm right here," she said, voice steady but slightly sharper than before. The lead agent didn't respond. No nod, no hint of recognition. Instead, "You're being detained for questioning regarding misappropriated funds and falsified reports." The microphone slipped slightly in her hand, an almost imperceptible tremor, but enough for the room to notice. Gasps spread like wildfire, forks clattered, glasses shifted, conversations froze midair. My mother's face turned pale, her hands gripping the edge of her chair. My father's jaw tightened. He remained frozen, as if the world had paused around him. "She's lying," my sister snapped, stepping back, trying to regain control. "She's the one—" "We have the audit," the lead agent interrupted, calm but absolute. "The investigation you commissioned confirms the findings. Every diversion, every misused fund, every falsified report has been verified and attributed to your actions." The room fell into a silence so heavy it felt like it could crush bones. As the cuffs closed around her wrists, the metallic click echoed sharply under the chandeliers, bouncing off the crystal and marble. The finality of the sound carried through every corner of the room. Her eyes locked onto mine, confusion, disbelief, fury swirling in equal measure. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. For the first time, the silence of the room belonged to me. Not to her, not to my parents, but to me. The weight of years spent unnoticed, unacknowledged, suddenly shifted. Every calculation, every quiet effort, every late-night project had led to this moment. I realized then that power wasn't in yelling, demanding, or confronting. It was in letting truth follow its course. And in that silence, I finally felt seen.
The nonprofit dissolved within months. What had once been a polished stage for appearances and accolades crumbled quietly, leaving only the stark reality behind. Court dates followed, restitution was ordered, and the slow machinery of justice moved methodically, without drama, without spectacle, but with undeniable consequences. I bought the old building for a symbolic $1 after the board disbanded. It was more than a purchase. It was a statement, a reclaiming of space that had once been used for manipulation and image. I turned it into something honest, something real, a training center for young minds, with free access, no cameras, no pretenses, a place where skill mattered more than appearance, where effort was celebrated quietly but truly. Some foundations need to fall so better ones can stand, and in that collapse, I found opportunity, purpose, and a sense of justice that required no applause. Light filled the halls where deception had once lingered, and the laughter of students replaced the rehearsed smiles of adults. Finally, the building reflected clarity, integrity, and possibility, the exact things that had been absent in my family for so long. I realized that rebuilding isn't just about structures or programs. It's about reclaiming space, dignity, and vision, and giving it to those who deserve it most. Life didn't transform overnight. It softened. My parents stopped trying to define me. My name stopped being questioned. Justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like air returning to a room I didn't realize was suffocating me. I didn't win by proving them wrong. I won by stepping out of the version of me they insisted was real. If you've ever been underestimated, silenced, or written into a story that wasn't yours, remember this. Quiet doesn't mean weak. Distance isn't failure. And truth doesn't need permission to surface. If this story resonated with you, share it, comment, stay. You're not rebuilding alone.